had a good talk with President Zelensky, very good talk. And somebody said, oh, I should have called Zelensky first. I don't think so. I mean, we have to find out whether or not Russia wants to make a deal. I know that Zelensky wants to make a deal because he told me that. But I now know that Russia wants to make a deal.
President Trump has begun his promised effort to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine, and initial signs are discouraging, not least making concessions to Vladimir Putin without anything in return.
The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement.
So, does Mr. Trump want to negotiate peace with honor that will last, or peace through weakness that'll reward the Kremlin?
Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences.
From outset, let's stipulate that Joe Biden left Mr. Trump a bloody mess.
The United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power.
Take the first exit.
Early in the war, the Ukrainians fought the Russians back from Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Kherson, and later drove Mr. Putin's Black Sea Fleet into retreat. But further counteroffensives were crippled by US failure to provide adequate or timely arms.
Even when they do the right thing, they do it too late.
Irrespective of who won the US election, the Ukraine war was likely to end with a settlement. But it's the details that are crucial to the security of Europe and America.
This is a war that would have never happened if I were president.
On that score, Mr. Trump is treating Mr. Putin and Russia unlike any other negotiating counterpart. Although it is a relief that one day after saying that Ukraine wouldn't be a part of discussions, Mr. Trump had changed his mind.
We would have Ukraine, we would have Russia, and we'll have other people involved.
But how will that play out with Mr. Putin? At the end of January, the Russian president was asked if he was prepared to sit down and negotiate with Mr. Zelensky. His response:
because of his illegitimacy, he is not in a position to sign anything. If he wants to take part in the talks, I will allocate people who will hold the talks.
The Ukrainian president's position:
we cannot accept any agreements made without us. Any bilateral negotiations about Ukraine without us, we will not accept.
We want, like you, a sovereign and prosperous Ukraine. But we must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective.
On February 12th, Pete Hegseth met with other defense chiefs at NATO headquarters in Brussels.
A durable peace for Ukraine must include robust security guarantees to ensure that the war will not begin again.
Mr. Hegseth tried to reassure Europe, but the end result was somewhat confusing.
Any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops.
Where those non-European troops come from is a mystery.
To be clear, as part of any security guarantee, there will not be U.S. troops deployed to Ukraine.
I thought his comments yesterday were pretty accurate. I don't see any way that a country in Russia's position could allow them, just in their position, could allow them to join NATO.
Mr. Trump likes to negotiate from a position of strength, but on Ukraine, he sounds like he's the one that wants a deal more. Mr. Putin, meanwhile, is continuing to bomb Ukraine's cities and power plants and take territory in the east, albeit at enormous human cost. Yes, it's important to challenge Europe to spend more on its own defense and to do more for Ukraine.
2% is not enough. President Trump has called for 5%.
But Mr. Hegseth's remarks strongly implied that the Trump position is that Europe may soon be on its own.
The United States faces consequential threats to our homeland. We must and we are focusing on security of our own borders. We also face a peer competitor in the communist Chinese with the capability and intent to threaten our homeland and core national interests in the Indo-Pacific.
The risk here is that despite the Trump administration's rhetoric, deterrence isn't divisible.
Together, we can establish a division of labor that maximizes our comparative advantages in Europe and Pacific, respectively.
Mr. Trump is wrong if he thinks letting Russia dominate Ukraine will result in less US involvement in Europe or enhanced deterrence in the Pacific. especially if, as some believe, Mr. Putin moves against Poland or the Baltics.
I think, Tuama, that he's preparing the war against NATO countries next year.
Should such an incursion occur, that would come at far greater cost to the US.
We don't think, you hear this term, burden sharing, but we think it's an important part of being in a shared alliance together that the Europeans step up while America focuses on areas of the world that are in great danger.
If Mr. Trump wants to end the war on honorable terms, he may have to demonstrate that he can raise the pressure on Mr. Putin. That could include increasing military support to Ukraine, removing limits on the use of weapons, and intensifying pressure on Russia elsewhere around the world.
I know him very well. Yeah, I think he wants peace. I think he would tell me if he didn't.